Okay, we're back for part two of the budget hearing. I know it's painful for the few of you that are actually going to watch this with me. I know it's painful, but we got to hear what they're saying because sometimes there's valuable information in here. And as I said in a previous video, this is the only time you get to peek at the executive culture which operates behind closed, locked doors at Harrison Street in complete secrecy. This is the only time we get to see it is during meetings like this. So let's continue our coverage of the budget hearing.
So, to answer your question, in 2016, we initiated investigating a regional low-income fare program, and over probably the last 6 months, I think we just concluded, 2 months ago, Metro and Trimet convened a group of stakeholders of about 22 folks, including cities, counties, interest groups, and to get an understanding of what's going on around the United States. And actually look to the north. Seattle is one of the big examples, and Director Prosser and I spent some time up there before they actually implemented it, so we know what they were doing. But it's been very interesting to learn. And the intent of this task force was really look at what are kind of the basics of the program. What are the income thresholds? How do we implement it? Who does the means testing?
All right, he's talking about low-income fares, which is in San Francisco and Seattle and other places. It might not have been such a priority had TriMet not abandoned its short hopper tickets, its zone system, and made everybody pay the equivalent of what used to be called an all-zone pass, which was the most expensive pass. If you remember, go back to 2012, they got rid of all the zones and they made everybody pay the top level price to ride the TriMet. And it didn't matter whether you're going down the block or riding from Gresham to Hillsborough, you paid the same fare. And a lot of us had a problem with that, and I still have a problem with that. But now they're investigating the low-income fare, and let's hear what he says.
And then again, how can we actually work together to make this happen? And then, of course, the final question you had is how do we fund it? I'm pleased to say that at the end of the work, the committee really did agree on a final program design and a variety of resource development strategies. The number one approach is looking at the state transportation package, which is being discussed down at the legislature right now, as the major funding source for this program. What I'm just pleased is those folks down in Salem understand the importance of transit, not only in this region but around the state, and so we think there's a good chance that there may be some additional resources made available for transit for us and for others.
Now he's talking about the tax increase that's going in Salem. I'm not sure whether they're going to approve it by vote or whether they're going to shove it down your throat. In California, they just shoved a massive tax increase down the throats of all the citizens. Seattle, they got to vote for it. Of course, after they voted yes, they found out it was a hell of a lot higher than what they thought it was going to be. So we have the people in Salem now. Every government entity on the West Coast. It's not happening. I've been back east for a little while here. None of this stuff is happening back here. I don't know why the West Coast has all these. I guess it's because it's the neoliberal hot spots, I guess you could actually say that. It's probably true. Since that's where the Democratic control is, I guess Democrats actually do raise taxes. I guess that's part of the reason why Republicans keep winning elections is because the Democrats do keep raising taxes, and eventually the taxpayers get sick of it, okay? And you can't blame them. I mean, in Portland, for example, they just keep adding tax after tax after tax after tax after tax, and as long as the citizens keep allowing it, they're going to keep bringing it to you. The people back east don't have this problem because they're way more advanced thinking-wise about taxes, okay? The states are older and more advanced. So I'm not sure what they have planned down there, whether it's going to be a voter approved or whether they're going to shove it down your throat. But he's talking about incorporating that in the low-income fare into that particular package.
We agreed, the general manager and myself agreed and told the committee, and we've told the legislature that if a new transportation funding package is approved by the legislature, this will be one of the prior programs that we'll be looking at to implement. And one of the main reasons of getting this group together was to really help build the partnerships, because I think it's fair to say we don't think Trimet should be in the means testing business. We think that we can work with our non-government organizations as well as the counties on how to actually qualify folks for this program when it's actually up and running. But it's clear after the legislature is done, we'll reconvene this group, look at what needs to be done based on the outcome of the legislature, and if we're not successful there, we'll be looking at Plan B. So I think that's the basics of the answer to your question. Was I responsive?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, there's the answer. He just gave the end. They're not going to do anything about low-income fare. They're going to hope that the legislature gives them money for this. I mean, Trimet has $200 million they make a year off fares. Now, if they had a discounted pass, how much would that actually represent off the 200 million? I mean, what, 50 million, 25 million? How many people would actually qualify for that? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's quite a few poor people in Portland that could use it. I don't know off the top of my head what the actual demographic is, but it seems like it would be chump change to me, given Trimet's overall revenue stream and its total budget. But they're not going to do anything now, okay? They're going to pass. This is what governments are very good at, and this is why they love to pass the buck to each other. The local likes to blame the feds like to blame the local, the state, they just pass the buck around, so nobody actually has to take responsibility. So he's just saying they're not doing anything until the state decides what they're doing.
Thank you. So then the second part of that question is, I was reading the Tribune, and they did a piece on Trimet's new fare procedures policy, and as I understand it, it allows for partial payment of fares. And what my question was is,
here's the big controversy coming up. Of course, he's wrong what that was. Trimet had instructed its operators to stop making a big deal out of the fares. One of the things I actually support, I think that Trimet did the exact right thing in that case. And they said, stop trying to make a big deal out of these fares because people were getting assaulted about it. And he's interpreting that, and that's what everybody seems to be doing, as you don't have to pay your fare anymore. And I don't know who's responsible for that coming out like that, but that's what he's asking now. You don't have to pay your fares anyway?
With a partial payment system, what potential impacts do you envision that might have on your income stream?
You take that one, yeah.
Well, let me just maybe clarify. Trimet is asking the legislature for authority to establish its own adjudication program, if you will, for fare citations. And that would allow the board to ultimately approve a whole series of sort of new steps associated with that. The details are to be developed, but right now what we're asking is the authority not to have a fare evasion citation immediately go to the courts, but to have a period of time where we can offer either a reduced fare or a reduced payment citation, or even community service or some other alternatives that may be available. But
yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about Trimet having complete control over this process. I mean, sometimes it's a good idea to have a separate, unaligned agency taking responsibility for the enforcement of the other agency. I'm not sure I like the idea of giving Trimet even more power than it has already. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they have some benevolent idea of how they're going to handle this. I don't trust them, to be honest with you, but I don't know. I don't know. From what I understand, you can go contest your ticket, and they cut it in half or give you community service. I don't know. I don't know if I like the idea of Trimet having complete control over this process.
Ultimate goal is to get people to pay their fare, and it's not to issue citations or adjudicate citations. So what we're looking forward to is a little bit more flexibility if the state legislature grants it, to really develop a program that really helps us encourage fair payment on a broad basis. I would also note that that follows up, and John may have some additional details about a very detailed deep dive into the data of fare evasion and what happens to those who are in the system. And one of our goals here is really to decriminalize fare evasion in all circumstances that we possibly can. And really just focus on getting people to pay the fare. Nobody should, have a record because of a $2.50 violation.
No, they shouldn't have a record over a $2.50 fare. He wants people to pay their fare. They never delve into the into the part where some people don't have the fare. Okay, they'll never talk about it. There's never been a study done about why people are fare evading in the first place. Because they know what they're going to find. They're going to find people that don't have the money. That's who's evading the fare. They're not doing it for any other reason. I mean, they're doing it because they can't afford it. That should be obvious. Okay, I drove for Trimet for 15 years. I saw how many people did not have $5 or even $2.50 to ride the bus. It's a serious problem. They don't want to talk about it because it's a societal problem, and they don't want to do anything about it without getting another money from somewhere else, because Trimet is it's a business more or less, and they're only interested in getting money from the public to keep themselves going. They're not really interested in serving the public. Let's be honest here. That whole agency is staffed by people making six-figure income. All those people sitting in there, they're all making huge salaries. They're going to have huge retirements, all on the backs of the citizens. But they don't want to discuss the people that don't actually have the money to ride the system. I mean, you have a hypocrisy here that's huge.
But yet we have the importance of really the integrity of the fare system that has to be maintained. So we're walking a balance there that we're looking for, and we believe this additional authority from the state legislature would really help us achieve that. So we can certainly provide some further information.
That's terrific. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And I have the next question as well. Trimet's unrestricted fund balance has been more than 30% of operating expenses for the past 3 years. In our experience, that's high. And we were wondering, why does Trimet maintain unrestricted fund balances at that level?
See, that's the kind of question gives you the answer why we watch this. So, what is an unrestricted fund balance? That means they can use the money for anything they want. That's what that means, right? So 30% of their money is in an account that they can use any way they want, and it's not earmarked. That's what I think he's saying. Let's see how he answers.
One I can address.
Okay.
A number of years ago, we had adopted the Strategic Finance Plan Guidelines, which set up the parameters for the management of Trimet's financial system. One of those guidelines calls for maintaining a fund balance equal to 2.5 times monthly expenses, and that's really to protect cash flow. In addition, we can put additional money in fund balance if we know that there's a large project coming up in the future. And
oh, did you hear what he said? If we have a project coming up, oh, that sounds to me like a capital project slush fund. That's what it sounds like. Let's keep listening.
And then, so we generally start out with a percentage of between 14 and 18% in our fund balance. And what we've noticed over the last couple of years is we end up with more carryover than we anticipated. It's primarily capital projects, but there can also be other large
There you go. He said it's capital, but once again, you see how the capital projects division has a chokehold on the agency. They're withholding actual unrestricted funds from operations and making sure that capital projects gets that money. And I talk about this all the time, how Trimet is owned by this capital projects cabal that's basically taking all the money and using it all kinds of different things that are not related to improving the actual service. Even though they say it is, we have no way to really know whether the Washington's Park upgrade is necessary, or we don't really know when they're replacing track. Is it actually really necessary, or are they just giving out a contract? We don't know. You have to believe them because there's nobody to question it. It's like, oh, we need to do this, so they do it. So he just said it's a slush fund for capital projects.
Projects or contracts where the expenditure plan ended up lagging what expectations, and so the money falls into ending fund balance, which of course then rolls over to beginning fund balance, and then we rebudget those expenses the following year. So it's a combination of things. On the carryover side, we are looking at that more closely. It's difficult to schedule expenditures on capital projects because there are a lot of unknown contingencies out there, but nevertheless we want to see if we can tighten that down a little more and make sure that we're budgeting only those projects that we can get done within the fiscal year. Not planning on carryovers. So that explains how we got to that higher level.
Thank you.
Well, you know how I feel about that. I'm an advocate to disband the entire capital projects department completely and stop expanding Trimet right now. Concentrate on making the service that they have world-class service, 24-hour service, enough backup drivers so that when a MAX breaks down, it doesn't take an hour to organize a bus bridge and cannibalize existing bus service. The only way you're going to be able to actually see high-quality service is if the Capital Projects Department of Trimet is dissolved, and they now worry about just keeping the system they have. And that's not going to happen because the cabal is in control there, and they're going to use all the same bullshit that all the other places do. If we're growing by 1 million people a year, and if we don't do this, we'll be choked. Well, we are choked, okay? We already know that they don't know what they're doing because the planning they've done has created the mess we have. We already know that they don't know what they're doing because they've been doing it, and we see there's a mess. So you keep allowing them to keep going and doing what they've been doing. What do they say? The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over even though it's hurting you. That's what capital projects does.